guys, welcome back to the Skinny Truth podcast. Today we are here again with a very special guest. It's actually another former or patient of roller weight loss. So we are so excited to introduce you to him. But as always, thank you guys for listening, for subscribing, following. We just love that you guys are loving this as much as we are. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Roller so he can introduce our guest.
All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us. And I want to introduce everybody to one of my all-star patients. Michael and I, think we've known each other for about 4 years now. Is that
5?
5 years.
Wow.
So time flies when you're having fun. But I mean, Michael is just a super special person, patient. He's done phenomenal. And so we kind of wanted to bring another patient on and their perspective and their story. Also, a male and kind of the choices that they've made. So, Michael, to start with, tell us how you even got to start thinking about weight loss surgery and what made you choose to go that route, and how did you end up from Mississippi into Arkansas?
Okay. So for me, thinking back over the last, 15, 20 years, I've battled obesity my entire life. It was my choice, I guess you could say my choice of an addiction. I come from a family of alcoholics. My dad, his brothers, their choice was alcohol. Whenever they would try to eliminate alcohol, they would turn to drugs, prescription drugs. For me, it was always food. I came from an era or a family that we didn't talk about our problems. I think back, and I was even talking to my grandmother about this not long ago, the issues that she was dealing with 15, 20, 30 years ago. She didn't talk about it. She kept it all to herself. My mom, my dad, going through divorce, I was the go-between. I never had a chance, to talk about anything. And I just kept eating and eating. Food didn't talk back. Food was that comfort. Food was that go-to for everything. I suffered early on childhood abuse, and it was the don't talk about it. Don't tell nobody about it, and I didn't. I just kept allowing certain things to happen because, 6, 7 years old, you don't know any better. You think things that are happening are okay. It's not until you're out doing other things with other children, hey, that's not right, and you go to talk about things and you get shut down. I can remember trying to talk to my mom, trying to talk to my dad about things that were going on, and they didn't want to hear it. They were busy, trying to mend their differences or go on their separate ways. So, here I am, 6, 7 years old, once again, turning to food.
So it started off turning to food as far back as 6 or 7 years old.
Yes, sir. I do believe so, because I can remember back as a child, I was active. I was always out doing things, but I was also eating. I can remember at my great grandmother's house one day, one of the comfort foods back then, there was always food on the stove, rice and gravy, cornbread. And I liked rice with butter on it. And I can remember her telling me, "Here comes your daddy." Well, I went and hid the food because he was always on to me about food. We would go to restaurants, and if he thought I had enough to eat, he would yank the plate away from me. But at the same time, he wanted me active in sports. He wanted me active in doing everything, but he wanted to make sure he paid the dues. He saw that I was there, but where was he? Where was his support? He was off doing his own thing. Again, didn't talk about it. Just kept eating and eating and eating. And, the parents divorced. I was that go-between, for everything. You can't go to your daddy's unless he does this, or you can't go here unless your daddy does that. I never had a chance to, to be a child of it. Instead, I was the middleman.
Yeah. That makes it, divorce is tough on
Yes.
kids. And Kristen's parents were divorced. And I mean, just listening to her stories,
Yeah.
you just wouldn't know. They were fine and cordial, but I mean, as a
Right.
child, when you're split,
Back and
Yeah.
You
forth.
know, you're split down the middle. I mean, so then how did that translate into adulthood?
So then going into adulthood, still, going into adulthood, graduating high school, being picked on from elementary school all the way up into high school because of my size. I can remember kids coming up behind me, popping your back like you had a bra on. And, just because of that. And, playing sports, trying to get me to play sports. And, I got to, I think, to the 6th or 7th grade. And then I was done. I said I didn't want to do it anymore. We changed schools, and the school that I went to was a great school, but there were so many bullies. And I can remember sitting in the cafeteria. I was that loner at the table by myself. I would probably have a tray of food, and I'd go get in line and get another tray of food. Not thinking about it back then. Of course, you think about things now like you were so stupid back then. But, I didn't talk. I can remember, some of the things that were happening back in school, fights, and not with me, but I got wrapped up in, some of the friends there that were causing trouble. And the counselor come to me and, telling me that I needed to do this and I needed to do that. And then it's like, this has nothing to do with me. And, then I started little by little talking about different things. So, I found someone that I could confide in to open up to. And of course, then that's gets my mom, gets my stepdad, gets my dad involved. Well, then of course they're embarrassed. Well, why didn't you talk to us about this? I said, I did. I said, y'all never wanted to listen to me. So I just quit talking about it to y'all. And of course, they were upset, but it did open up a door for me to start talking about things. But then that was it.
What was your weight in high school?
In high school, I when I graduated high school, I was right at about 300 pounds.
Okay. It sounds like clearly people treated you different because of that weight.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
What was your highest weight into adulthood?
557.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so from high school, so then fast forward to 5 or 6 years ago when you decided, okay, enough's enough. You're putting
Yeah.
yourself first.
So when I got to that point, when I made the visit to come see you, 2014, 2015, my grandfather had a stroke. We were in rehab talking, and then he comes home, transitions to home, and we're out there at his house talking one day. Social worker comes to make a house call to make sure everything's up to par with, the handicap regulations and et cetera. And the social worker just asked him, she says, well, what's wrong with you? Because he was just, upset. And he just points his finger at me and says, he's getting bigger and bigger. And I'm afraid I'm going to end up burying him. And I just looked at him and I said, Papa, this isn't about me. Well, the next thing you know, we're having an intervention and the social worker's talking to me. And I'm sitting there on a sofa, bawling my eyes out, 35, 36 years old, just pouring it all out there. And social worker left, and my grandmother and I were in another room in the house talking. And she says, Michael, she says, I knew you were dealing with a lot when you were a kid. I mean, because I went all the way, I went as far back as I could to present. She said, but you know what I was dealing with back then too. My blood grandfather was abusive and et cetera, but that's a story for another day. So she was dealing with things on her own. And she said, but I didn't know how to reach out. I didn't know how to talk about what was bothering you while I was dealing with my own hectic life at the same time. And I said, well, I don't hold any of this against you. I said, it is what it is. I'm better now. And she says, well, we're going to do what we can to help you start losing weight. You have our support. Well, I made a phone call to a surgeon in Ocean Springs, set up an appointment, and it was at the point where they were going to pay for me to have weight loss surgery. And this was, I think, 2014, 2015. Made the appointments. I started losing weight. I remember I hit 75 pounds weight loss on my own, and the whole family was happy. They said, Michael's finally doing something. He's sticking with it. Got up to about 125 pounds lost, and my dad died. And that was probably a deal breaker for me, because I was still dealing with a lot of unresolved issues with him. Then he dies. He ended up in the hospital for about a month before he passed away. And so I was dealing with that and wasn't paying attention to me and weight loss as much as I was 18 months prior. Before you knew it, I gained 100 pounds back.
Yep.
Then, at the old store I was working at, we were all in the office talking about new benefits. It was getting around the time for open enrollment, and someone said something about weight loss surgery. And I stood up and I laughed and I said, well, I can tell y'all right now, our insurance doesn't pay for weight loss surgery. I said, I would know. And she says, no, you need to check again because it does. And I said,
and this is through the Walmart Center of Excellence program.
Through the Center of Excellence, yeah. And I told him point blank, I said, y'all are lying. I said, I'm over benefits. I'm the one that knows what benefits we have. And she says, well, you want to put a bet on it? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. So we got in my office at called Blue Cross, and I ended up having to pay for that bet. But they had started paying for weight loss surgery 6 months prior.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I hung up the phone with them, and then I went home, I talked to my grandmother, and I said, I'm going to sign up. I said, I'm going to make the phone call. I'm going to make the appointments. I'm doing this. About 6 months into that, went and saw my PCP, told him what I wanted to do. He says, whatever I got to do, you got my signature. He says, basically he was giving me a signature saying, whatever you have to do. He says, I've known you your whole life. I've saw your struggles. He says, I want you to get this surgery. Called, I think back then it was called Grand Rounds, got through to them, and then they put me in touch, of course, with Centers of Excellence. They sent me the paperwork. Next thing I know, it was probably 3, maybe 4 months later, I got a phone call saying, hey, we're sending you to Fayetteville, Arkansas for Roller Weight Loss. He's one of our newest physicians of choice for Center of Excellence for Weight Loss Surgery. And Dr. Roller, I've never told you this, but I said I didn't want to go to Fayetteville. I wanted to go to San Antonio because I had family there.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah. She said, if you do want to go to San Antonio, we will have to cancel this appointment. You will have to go through the whole process again. I said, forget it. I'll make the drive. So I got my brother to go up with me, and our appointment, very first appointment, was July 29th. So 5 years and 2 weeks shy of 5 years from that first appointment. Got in and met with Dr. Kristen, and she gave me a paper and said, these are all the surgeries we do. I think you need to have the modified dual dental switch. And I looked at her and I said, well, my entire family tells me no. I said, they tell me that I'm going to die. They tell me that I'm going to be on lifetime medications. They tell me that I'm going to wake up in pain. I'm just going to regret this decision. And she says, I'm the doctor. I'm the one that's going to tell you what's
Right.
best. I mean, she didn't say it like that, but in so many words. And I said, well, I know at the end of the day, you and I are going to make the best decision. So we ended up choosing the modified dual dental switch. At that appointment, I was at 490. So I had lost a little bit of the weight that I had gained. And she said, you need to lose 50 pounds. She said, do what you can. We did all the appointments we could do there, and I couldn't pass the stress test. I mean, it was hard.
Because of the bicycling one.
Yes, that bicycling. Yep. I was looking at that picture the other day, and I was like, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking? But then cardiologist here at home, he ended up approving me without me even seeing him. He says, I know your history, I know your struggles, et cetera, et cetera. Then I called back, once I got clearance, and we had surgery October 9th. And I maintained, I believe, 200 pounds weight loss. Then Dr. Roller did a tummy tuck. That took 15 pounds off. Am I still your highest one?
Oh, wow.
Yes. My shoulder still hurts from that.
That's a decent amount.
Yeah, most definitely.
Well,
I mean, it was a big one.
I mean, Laura, how much did you have off on your tummy tuck?
Mine was less than 4 pounds, I think. Yeah. And you've seen pictures. It looked like it should be more than that. So I can only imagine 15.
Yeah.
Skin doesn't weigh a lot. So
right.
To get to 15 pounds of skin, there's a lot of skin.
Definitely. You put the work in.
Most definitely. And then let's see. So I slowly started gaining some weight back, 15, 20 pounds. And I had to, then I met with Dr. Payne, January 2023. She says, I need you to lose 25 pounds. Okay, fine. Fast forward to January of this year. Once I went through the process of getting insurance to approve the chest skin removal and the arm skin removal, we got on the phone and we talked, and she says, well, tell me how much weight you've lost since the last time we talked. And I said, none. She says, okay, well, that number is now 30 pounds. I need you to lose 30 pounds. Well, I ended up losing about 40 pounds. And even since then, because when she did the surgery, I was 270, and now I'm down to 255. So,
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's a great point, because a little bit of weight regain, you
Yeah.
know, sometimes can be enough to go, okay, like back to the basics.
back to the basics.
You would post all the time, you know, your boot camps and stuff like that. And Dr. Payne is the plastic surgeon in our practice. Like I don't think you're
She's
referring to like
amazing.
Dr. Payne as, you know, causing pain with Paine.
Right.
I mean, she does cause pain too, but it's
Yeah.
in the good kind.
Yeah.
So I think dealing with some weight regain and that 20 to 25 pounds, what do you think caused it? And what did you do to get it back off, plus some?
So I honestly would say, for me, with the weight gain, for me, it was sweet treats, allowing, you know, the once a week sweet treat with my grandmother. When I take her out to town, we would stop for a cookie, cake, cinnamon roll, or a ice cream cone. And once a week, you know, most people say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Well, then that once a week turns into every other day. And then before you know it, you're allowing those sweet treats every day. You don't think about it initially, and then, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, when you start seeing that scale slowly trickle back up, and then, you know, like, oh, what is going on? And then I'm still going to the gym, doing boot camps, workouts, walking, doing all the work, but yet that sweet treat is, you know, it's like, what are you working for? For me, you know, when Dr. Payne said, you know, you need to lose 25, 30 pounds or there will be no surgery. Well, this surgery was important to me. Both of them are. I got back to the basics: protein bar, protein shake. I even ordered one of your products, Laura, the purple and gold bag, the Flav
The
City.
Flav City.
Yeah.
Yay. Did you like it?
I love it. I did have to change it up a little bit, not with just the Fairlife milk. I've added a little bit of coffee to it to try to get a better taste to it. But yeah, I do like it.
Yeah, I add my Nespresso to it, extra caffeine. Never hurt
Yeah.
anybody, right?
I mean, I think Laura, you talked about it on one of the last couple episodes, getting back to the basics, like following the rules.
Yes,
Yep.
most definitely.
It works.
Yeah, and nowhere on there is it. I heard this really interesting thing watching this documentary the other day on eating and foods, and it's like, you know, we always teach moderation, and moderation's okay, and this, that, and the other, but really, there's nothing out there that says, there's no scientific study that says, well, just do this 4 or 5 days a week and you'll be fine. Just don't do it all 7 days, and that's really where you can get into trouble. Were you weighing every day, Michael, during that time?
During the time that I was gaining the weight back?
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
sir. I would weigh probably once or twice a month, and then I would sign up for a weight loss challenge at the gym, and I would lose 5, 10 pounds. But as soon as every time the number dropped, I'd go reward myself. And I ended up telling one of the fitness coaches at the gym, she says, well, you lost 5 pounds last week, but you lost 1 pound this week. What did you do? I said, whenever I left the gym, I went and got a donut. She says, you idiot. She says, you of all people know better. And, you know, then whenever January rolled around, we were in another weight loss challenge, and I was, you know, dropping the weight left and right. And she pulled me to the side, and there was a couple of other people in the gym, and she said, I wished he had this attitude that for this surgery, he has been more determined to lose the weight with this weight loss challenge. She said, I wished he was like this 6 months ago, because we would have all won the challenge. But the priorities.
Yeah, you know, I think the moderation, talking about that, it's a really big topic, because it's like Dr. Roller said, what is moderation? How many days is that? And I really feel like a lot of us can't handle moderation.
Nope.
Like it's just a slippery slope.
It is.
And yeah. It's just an interesting thing.
Well, and Michael, your family history and your addiction to with addiction, I mean, letting that habit in can create a nightmare.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's, my grandmother and I keep referencing her, but she is my biggest supporter. I mean, she's the one as far back, you have my support. So I reference her a lot, but I have a great circle, a network of people that have always been supportive. We were talking not long ago. So I would say since January, I've had 3 sweet treats, and they were nasty, every one of them. And they were my favorite sweet treats, and every one of them were nasty. I had no taste for it. And I was telling her, and I said, here, I said, you can have this. I said, I can't eat it. She says, it's not going to hurt you. And I said, it is going to hurt me. I said, because you know what I gained, and now you know what I've lost. I said, we're not doing that again. I said, you can have it all you want. So it's even helped her because she's a borderline diabetic at 80 years old. So she doesn't even need them. So it's even not, she doesn't even have them as much. So
Laura, have you experienced that as well, where your people around you, it's almost an enabling type of attitude, but it's like, well, it's just one time. Like, it's just this, and I mean, how do you deal with that?
I don't feel like I do deal a lot with that. I mean, most everyone is just supportive, and if I'm like, I don't want it, they've just never pushed me to say, oh, it's just one time, like just live a little. I have found like in maintenance that I can do a little bit of moderation, but I'm also very big on daily weight. So, and I really think that is so important because I feel like, when you see just like 2 pounds go up or whatever, you're like, okay. And you can catch it before it really becomes a problem.
Right.
And so I feel like the weighing daily is so big, like bigger than everything really in like the regain world.
Would y'all both agree with the statement? And I'll say it first and then tell what I mean by it. You can't outrun or out exercise your fork. Like, no matter how much you exercise, those food choices can just destroy the hard work you're putting in exercise-wise.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, for example, crumble cookies. I don't know if you guys have seen this stuff go around TikTok or whatever, talking about one cookie is like 1,000 calories.
Wow.
And when you look at that and like, how much do you have to do to burn that off? I mean, it's just mind blowing that we eat like that, that it's acceptable to eat those things.
Yeah, most definitely.
Well, that's, so I think that's the biggest take home, of today is you can go through these. Isn't Michael's 5 years out now? He's gone through some skin stuff, but he's had that motivation to get it back off. But if you don't recognize what led you to put it on, and so that's the most important thing, Michael, is that you actually recognize, okay, it's doing the sweet one day a week has led to every day.
Right. And it did.
With the regain. I mean, that you're a perfect example, though, that the tool works. It still works 5 years later.
Yes.
You just have to go back. And that's what I always say, go back to basics. And it works.
It did. And it's still working because I have still, even now, because Dr. Payne said, well, you don't need to lose anymore if you don't want to. Just maintain 270. And I said, no, I said, I'm going to continue to lose. I said, at one time, Dr. Roller told me I get to 226. And she says, well, I said, don't worry. I'm not getting to 226. I said, 239 will be my number. And she says, okay. She says, well, I'm not pushing you to that. I said, no, that's my number.
And that, from a plastic surgeon, they kind of have their weight somewhere they like you to be.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of thing. And that's their deal. So,
and I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, she does great work and it's gone well. And, I think one of the biggest things that's happened here is people like you coming here from, we're talking about the Walmart Center of Excellence program, and there's 6 or 7 centers in the country they'll send their patients to. And we see so many people coming from all over the country. And it's, I just, if you'd stayed where you're at, let's say, for example, you wouldn't have got the duodenal switch procedure.
They don't even do that surgery here. In fact, one of my cousin's daughters went to the surgeon that I actually went to, because I told her, I said, you need to look into the surgery that I had. And she brought it up to his attention. He says, I don't do that surgery. He said, that is too invasive of a surgery. And she says, well, you know, my cousin had it done. And he said, basically, in his words, well, good for him, but I'm not doing it. We don't do that surgery. That's just too hard on your body. It's like, well, it wasn't hard on me. I said, I just, you know, had 6 holes drilled in me and the rest was left up to me.
There, I mean, there was a little more precision than drilling.
Yeah.
I will say,
Right.
yeah. No, but that's been a game changer for a lot of people to have that coverage and then be able to go on and do the loose skin, you know, kind of reminders of the past. And how did your grandmother handle the, hey, we can't do the sweet treats thing anymore? Did it change your relationship, or, you know, she get mad at you?
No, in fact, whenever I made my mind up, I talked to her on the phone. I said, I'm telling you right now, this is it. Well, actually, let me take that back. She was in the car with me the day that I talked to Dr. Payne. We each had something sweet in hand. We were driving home and Dr. Payne said, lose the weight or no surgery. Now, Dr. Payne, I love her and I respect her. She has a way with words. You know, she has that mothering effect. And we got off the phone and I was aggravated. I ended up not eating what I had. I ended up throwing it out the window because I had gotten so aggravated. And my grandmother's over there laughing at me. And she says, well, you know what she told you was the truth. I said, I don't want to hear that right now. And so she starts eating whatever she had. And I said, all right. I said, Momo, this is it. I said, nothing else. I said, enjoy that, whatever. I think it was a cookie. I said, enjoy it. And she says, well, what did you do with yours? I said, didn't you just see me throw it out the window? She said, oh, yeah. So we drove home and I made my mind up then. You know, now a couple of weeks later, we were going somewhere and she says, well, let's stop at, I think it was Starbucks. She said, let's stop at Starbucks. I said, okay. And so I ordered her a drink. I ordered me a drink. And she says, you're not getting me a cookie or a piece of cake? I said, no, if I can't have it, you can. And she says, well, you're the one that's got to lose the weight, not me. So
gosh,
we laughed it off. And then, you know, once she saw that I was taking it seriously, you know, 5 pounds, 10 pounds. And then, you know, when I got to the 270 mark, she says, well, you really did it. I said, I told you, I said, having my boob job was important.
Right. Yes, important stuff there.
Yeah.
I was going to ask because I think that it's a good thing because you live, remind me where you're at, was it Mississippi?
Yeah, Ocean Springs, Mississippi.
Okay, so how was it being in Mississippi and Dr. Roller being in Arkansas? How hard or how easy was it, like appointment wise? Can you briefly talk about that?
Yeah. So the appointments basically in the beginning were I guess you could say left up to me to make, so to speak, as far as a time frame, because the office, they said, okay, this is your window of appointment time. And I arranged from work the time that I needed to be off. You know, I drove for the first appointment, spent the night, drove back home. And then surgery, I think, Dr. Roller, you required me to be in town for, I think, a week after weight loss surgery. And I think it was a week. So for me, it wasn't hard. It was just arranging the time with work to be off. So nothing conflicted with work for me to be out.
Right.
I think for weight loss surgery, I was out 2 weeks. Tummy tuck, I was out 2 weeks, which I should have taken off a little more time. But so then whenever I had my chest done, I took 5 weeks off. As far as getting there and having it done, it was a piece of cake for me. You know, just the drive. That's the only thing that wears you out is the drive. But
well, now currently Walmart does pay a travel benefit,
not for me.
and we've got it into, for a lot of our patients, one trip.
Yeah.
So it's different than 5 years ago. That's the thing. We're kind of constantly keep advancing to get the plans with the insurance companies perfect. But yeah, you can now. I mean, I had patients come in from out of state today that I pre-opt. You know, on a Monday, or Kristen saw today. I'll see tomorrow.
Oh, wow!
And we'll do surgery Wednesday, and they'll be home Monday.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's less than a week, but I mean, this is a conversation I must have had on Instagram at least 15 different times this weekend. That you get one crack at this surgery to do it right the first time,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And 1 week of your life is so important.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's so important. But Northwest Arkansas is a great place to come visit. Michael's a world traveler. He goes he goes everywhere. So, he finds the fun stuff no matter
Yeah.
where he.
Even traveling, in the last 5 years, I've taken more vacations in 5 years than I have in my entire life. And prior to weight loss surgery, I couldn't do anything. I remember taking a couple of vacations with one of my best friends. He would always, he's now I feel I'm faster at doing things than he is. But back then, he was the one that was always a mile ahead of me. But he would always make sure, that I was not left out on anything, but I was wore out. I mean, we would walk a half a block or whatever, and I was like, I got to sit down, take a break. I mean, now, I can do 5, 6, 7 miles and not stop.
Right.
And then someone asked me, they said, well, don't you get tired of traveling? I said, no. I said, I've waited my whole life to take these trips that I have taken. I said, and I'm not going to stop. I said, I'll stop when I'm dead, not really. But yeah, we're going to, I'll get to a point where I stop, but I waited my whole life to be able to do the things that I have done in the last 5 years.
Right. Yeah. All right, Michael. So I'm going to add one last question to leave our listeners with today. What is one piece of advice that you would give somebody going through getting ready to have bariatric surgery or has had bariatric surgery? What's the number one piece of advice?
Get your problems out of the way first. This is not a quick fix. Do your homework, do your research, make sure, this is a lifelong commitment. Do what they tell you to do. You're going to get what, depending on who you choose, you're going to get your roller Bible. And I threw mine away not long ago.
Well, Michael, they're choosing us. So just, you can act like.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, but that's the one thing that I've stressed to even people that have come to me that have had weight loss surgery here recently. Do the homework. Well, what do you mean? Whatever surgery you choose, make sure this is what you want to do. This is going to change your life. It is a lifelong commitment.
Absolutely.
You have to do what they tell you to do. If they tell you to do this, do that, do it. You may think it's pointless. You may think that it makes no sense. Trust me, do it.
Laura, you say that all the time. I mean, that is something that I see.
I was just getting ready to
constantly.
say, it sounds like exactly what I say. I'm like, people are like, what would you tell somebody? I'm like, do what they say to do. It works. And if you follow that, you are going to be successful.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's coming from two very successful patients, that have both done it. It couldn't be more different in size and height and male and female, and just the rules are there for a reason. And like for me, it's 17 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and like trying to optimize it, because it wasn't like this 17 years ago.
Yeah,
like there's stuff that we learn. I learn from my patients on a daily basis. So like now we're sending patients home the same day in our new surgery center. We just opened up a few weeks ago. They're going home the same day, which is mind-boggling, because 17 years ago, people stayed 2 nights in the hospital. And I'll never forget this. I think I was probably a year and a half in, and I would go around the next afternoon, and I saw this lady. She's probably upper 50s, and she's like, I'm ready to go home. I said, I know, you need to stay a second night. And she's like, I'm not staying a second night. She lived in Oklahoma. I go, but, listen, these are the rules. She goes, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going home. You can either support me or not. And so I remember giving her my cell phone. I said, I'm going to call you. You call me if you need anything. I was freaked out, because that's not how we'd done stuff.
Right.
I called her the next morning at 7:00, and she just said, I'm doing fine. Quit bothering me. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. And I was like, why are we keeping people for, So it's the rule.
Nice.
Yeah. So it changed because like if there's a better way of doing something, but in general, the rules are the rules, because it's based on a bunch of previous experiences, right, that have been fine tuned and tweaked. So we don't have to fail and get up again and fail. It's like, we got it. It's not perfect, and there'll be changes coming, but it's good. But watching you two,
right,
basically virtually say the exact same thing, one from Oklahoma and one from Mississippi on the same surgery. It's just
never talked before this.
First time meeting. First time meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah, it works.
Michael, we we definitely appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate
yes, thank you.
having you as a friend the last 5 years. We keep up all the time,
Oh
and
yeah. Thanks for the
it's
opportunity.
no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story. I know that probably wasn't easy, and thank you to all our followers for tuning in. And as always, you can get us on YouTube, Spotify, or the Apple Podcast channel. Download, like, share, ask questions, comments. We'd love to answer them. So thanks again for listening. And thanks, Michael. Everybody have a great rest of the week.
Yes, thanks, Michael.